The apartment felt like a tomb at midnight. I'd been sitting in the same spot on my couch for 3 hours, staring at the blank television screen, my reflection ghostly in the black mirror. 3 months. It had been exactly 3 months since David's funeral, and I still couldn't bring myself to turn on the TV. The silence felt safer somehow, like any sound might shatter what little composure I had left. My phone sat beside me, face down on the coffee table next to an untouched cup of cold tea and a stack of unopened sympathy cards. I'd stopped reading them weeks ago. What was the point? Sorry for your loss, they all said, as if David was something I'd misplaced rather than my little brother, my best friend, the only person who really understood my weird sense of humor and my obsession with terrible horror movies. The clock on my kitchen wall ticked toward midnight, each second echoing through the stillness. I used to love this time of night when David was alive. We'd text each other random thoughts, stupid memes, or just complain about our days. He was a night owl like me, working late shifts at the hospital as a radiology tech. Night shift sisters, he used to call us, even though he was my brother and worked in healthcare while I pushed papers at an insurance company. I picked up my phone, muscle memory making me check for messages that would never come. The lock screen showed 11:58 p.m., and for a moment, I considered texting his number. I'd done it a few times in the weeks after the accident, sending messages into the digital void just to feel like he might somehow receive them. His phone had been destroyed in the crash, but his number was still active. The phone company said it would take months to officially disconnect it. The accident. Even now, I couldn't think about it without my chest tightening. A drunk driver running a red light, T-boning David's car as he drove home from his night shift. The police said he died instantly, that he didn't suffer, as if that made it better, as if knowing he didn't feel pain could somehow lessen mine. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, kept telling me that grief wasn't linear, that there was no timeline for healing. Some people find comfort in maintaining connections with their loved ones, she'd said during our last session, talking to them, visiting their grave, keeping their memory alive in small ways. But what she didn't understand was that I didn't want small ways. I wanted my brother back. I wanted his terrible jokes at 2 a.m. and his ability to make me laugh even on my worst days. The clock struck midnight with a soft chime, and that's when it happened. My phone buzzed against the coffee table, the vibrations startlingly loud in the quiet room. I jumped, my heart hammering as I reached for it. Probably a work email or some automated notification, but when I turned the phone over, my blood turned to ice. The message was from David's number. "Hey Jess, can't sleep either?" I stared at the screen until my eyes watered, refusing to blink in case the message disappeared. This wasn't possible. David was dead. I'd seen his body at the funeral home, pale and still in that terrible navy suit Mom had picked out. I'd watched them lower his casket into the ground. I'd thrown dirt on top of it with shaking hands while relatives I barely knew patted my shoulders and murmured about God's plan. My hands trembled as I typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "It's me, Jesse, your favorite brother." Favorite brother. He'd always said that, even though he was my only brother. It was our running joke. But anyone could have known that, right? Anyone who knew us well enough. Maybe it was some sick prank, someone who'd gotten hold of his phone records or social media. Maybe it was a glitch in the system, some automated response generated by an app he'd used. "David is dead," I typed, my fingers barely able to hit the right keys. I know. Weird, right? Still figuring this whole thing out myself. I dropped the phone like it had burned me, scrambling backward on the couch until I hit the armrest. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. People don't text from beyond the grave. There had to be a logical explanation, something rational and grounded in reality. But when I picked up the phone again, the messages were still there. "Jess? You still there? I know this is probably freaking you out." My rational mind kicked into overdrive, cycling through possibilities. Someone had hacked his number. A friend was playing a cruel joke. I was having a breakdown, finally succumbing to the grief I'd been trying so hard to manage. Dr. Martinez had warned me about this, about the mind's way of creating comfort in times of extreme trauma. "This isn't real," I typed. "Remember when we were kids and you were convinced the monster under your bed was real? You made me check every night for 2 months. I told you then that just because something seems impossible doesn't mean it isn't happening. My breath caught in my throat. That memory was so specific, so perfectly David. When I was 7 and he was 5, I'd gone through a phase where I was terrified of my bedroom. Every night I'd sneak into his room and wake him up, begging him to check under my bed for monsters. He never complained, never told me I was being silly. He'd march into my room with a flashlight, conduct a thorough investigation, and then stay with me until I fell asleep. No one else knew about that. We'd never told our parents because I'd been embarrassed about being scared of something so childish. It was just between us, a shared memory that had never been spoken about since. How do you know that? I typed, even though I was afraid of the answer. Because I was there, remember? You used to give me your dessert at dinner as payment for monster hunting services. Best deal I ever made. The details were perfect, down to the dessert bribery I'd completely forgotten about until he mentioned it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone, but I needed to know more. I needed to test this, to find some crack in the facade that would prove this was all some elaborate hoax. What was the last thing you said to me? There was a longer pause this time, and I found myself holding my breath, waiting for the response that would either shatter my world or restore some semblance of sanity to it. I said, "See you tomorrow, night shift sister," when you called me at the hospital that Tuesday. I was about to leave for home. You told me to drive carefully because it was raining. I said I always do. And you said that's what scared you most because I'm a terrible liar. The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the coffee table. That conversation had happened 45 minutes before the accident. It was the last time we'd spoken, and I'd never told anyone the specifics of what we'd talked about. The police had asked if our conversation was normal, if David had seemed upset or distracted. I'd told them it was just a regular check-in between siblings, but I'd never shared the exact words. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. "David? Yeah, Jesse. It's really me." I don't know how long I sat there crying. The tears came in waves, months of suppressed grief and impossible hope colliding in my chest until I could barely breathe. This wasn't possible, but it was happening. My dead brother was texting me from wherever he was now, and despite every logical bone in my body screaming that this had to be a hallucination or a breakdown or some kind of elaborate fraud, I believed him. "I've missed you so much," I finally managed to type through my tears. "I've missed you too. That's why I figured out how to do this. How is this possible? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. Death is different than I expected. There are rules here, but they're not the rules we learned in Sunday school. It takes a lot of energy to reach through like this, and I can only do it at midnight. Something about the boundary between days makes it easier." I wiped my eyes, trying to process what he was telling me. "Are you okay? Are you in pain?" "I'm not in pain, Jess. It's hard to explain, but I'm okay. More than okay, actually. But I can see you, and you're not okay." A chill ran down my spine. "You can see me?" "Not all the time. Just sometimes, when the connection is strong. You've been sitting in the dark for weeks, eating cereal for dinner and avoiding Mom's calls. You took 3 sick days last week to stay in bed and watch the ceiling fan spin." He was right about all of it. I had been avoiding everyone, going through the motions of living without actually engaging with life. The idea that David had been watching me in my lowest moments should have felt invasive, but instead, it felt comforting, like he'd never really left. "I don't know how to do this without you," I typed. "You don't have to do it without me. That's why I'm here. I know this is crazy and probably terrifying, but Jesse, you have to promise me you won't tell anyone about this. Not yet, anyway. People wouldn't understand. I don't understand either. That's okay. We'll figure it out together. But for now, just know that I'm still here in whatever way I can be. I'm still your brother, and I'm still looking out for you." A new wave of tears hit me, but these felt different, cleaner somehow. For the first time in months, the crushing weight in my chest loosened just slightly. I wasn't crazy. David was really talking to me. And maybe, just maybe, death wasn't the absolute ending I'd believed it to be. "Will you text me again tomorrow?" I asked. "Every night at midnight if you want me to. Same as always, night shift sister." I smiled through my tears, the first real smile I'd managed since the funeral. "Same as always. Get some sleep, Jess." And tomorrow, try to eat something that isn't cereal, okay? You're worrying me. I will. I love you, David. I love you too. Always. The conversation ended, and I sat in the silence of my apartment, but it felt different now, less like a tomb and more like a sanctuary. My brother was dead, but somehow, impossibly, he was still with me, still taking care of me in the way only he could. I finally turned on the television, letting the soft glow fill the room as I settled back into the couch cushions. For the first time in months, I felt like I might actually be able to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new questions, new impossibilities to grapple with, but tonight, I had my brother back. And that was enough. I woke up the next morning with sunlight streaming through my bedroom window for the first time in weeks. I'd actually opened the curtains before going to bed, something that would have seemed impossible just 24 hours earlier. The conversation with David felt like a dream, but when I checked my phone, the messages were still there, glowing proof that my dead brother had somehow reached across the void to comfort me. For the first time since the accident, I made myself a proper breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, even fresh coffee instead of the instant stuff I'd been surviving on. David's words echoed in my mind. Try to eat something that isn't cereal. He'd always been the responsible one, making sure I took care of myself even when I couldn't be bothered to try. Work felt different too. I actually paid attention during meetings, responded to emails promptly, and even made small talk with my coworkers. My supervisor, Karen, noticed immediately. "You seem more like yourself today, Jessica," she said, stopping by my cubicle around noon. "I'm glad to see you're doing better." I smiled, realizing it was genuine. Yeah, I think I'm starting to heal a little. If only she knew the truth, that my healing had come not from therapy or time or any of the conventional wisdom about grief, but from midnight texts from beyond the grave. The thought should have terrified me, but instead, it filled me with a warm anticipation. In just 12 hours, I'd get to talk to David again. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every glance at the clock felt like watching paint dry. I found myself planning what I wanted to ask him, what I needed to know. Could he see Mom and Dad? Did he know how much we all missed him? Was there really something after death? Or was he stuck in some in-between place? By the time I got home, I was practically vibrating with nervous energy. I cleaned the apartment, something I hadn't done properly in months. I ordered Chinese takeout and actually ate it at the table instead of on the couch. I called my mother for the first time in 2 weeks. "Jessica, honey, you sound so much better," she said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. "I've been so worried about you." "I know, Mom. I'm sorry I've been distant. I'm trying to work through things. Your father and I have been thinking about you constantly. Maybe this weekend you could come visit. We could go through some of David's things together if you're ready." The mention of David's belongings sent a pang through my chest, but it wasn't the devastating blow it would have been yesterday. "Maybe, Mom. Let me think about it." "Of course, sweetheart. There's no rush. We just want you to know we're here for you." After we hung up, I sat in my living room, watching the clock creep toward midnight. At 11:45, I positioned myself on the couch with my phone, my heart hammering with anticipation. The minutes felt like hours, but finally, the clock struck 12, and right on schedule, my phone buzzed. "How was your day, night shift sister?" I smiled, typing back quickly. "Better. Much better. I took your advice about the cereal. I noticed. Proud of you. You even called Mom." A chill ran through me. "You were watching?" "Not exactly watching. It's more like feeling your energy when it's strong. Your happiness today was like a beacon. I could sense it from here." "Where is here exactly?" "That's complicated. It's not a place like you'd understand it. More like a state of being?" I know that sounds like hippie nonsense, but it's the best way I can describe it. Think of it like being between radio stations. You can hear both frequencies, but neither one is entirely clear. I pondered that for a moment. "Are you alone there?" "No, there are others." "But Jess, I need to tell you something and you're going to think I've lost my mind. Well, whatever's left of it." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "I can see things. Not just you, but future things. Events that haven't happened yet. It's like being able to flip through the pages of a book before reading it." "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow's lottery numbers, for instance. The Powerball drawing. Do you want them?" I stared at the screen. my mind reeling. This conversation had taken a sharp left turn into territory I wasn't prepared for. "David, that's not possible," says the woman texting her dead brother at midnight. He had a point. If I could accept that death wasn't the absolute end, why couldn't I accept that it might come with abilities that defied everything I thought I knew about reality? "Are you serious about the lottery numbers?" Dead serious. No pun intended. Write these down. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42, and the Powerball is 18. I grabbed a pen and scribbled the numbers on the back of a takeout menu. "David, if you can really see the future, why lottery numbers? Why not warn people about accidents or disasters? It doesn't work like that. I can only see certain things clearly, and most of them involve you or people connected to you. The lottery numbers came through because you've been stressed about money since you took all that time off work after the funeral. Your financial anxiety is so strong it created a clear path to that information." He was right about the money stress. I'd burned through most of my savings during my grief-induced hibernation, calling in sick and barely managing to keep up with bills. The lottery ticket would cost $2. Money I could afford to lose if this turned out to be an elaborate delusion my mind was constructing to cope with loss. What if I win? Then you'll have enough money to take better care of yourself. Maybe take that vacation we always talked about, remember? We were going to go to Ireland together when we both had enough saved up. My throat tightened. We'd planned that trip for years, always putting it off because there was never quite enough money or time. Now there would never be enough of either. I miss planning things with you. Who says we can't still plan things? I may be dead, but I'm not gone. We'll figure out a new normal, Jesse. But first, promise me you'll play those numbers tomorrow. What if someone sees me playing the lottery and thinks I have a gambling problem? Since when do you care what strangers think? Besides, it's one ticket. If it hits, you can worry about explaining your sudden good luck later. He was right. What did I have to lose besides $2 and what remained of my grip on reality? If the numbers were wrong, I'd know this was all an elaborate hallucination and could start the process of getting serious help. If they were right, well, I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. Okay, I'll play the numbers. Good girl. Now, tell me about work. Did you actually pay attention in meetings today? Or did you just pretend to? We texted for another hour about mundane things. Work, the weather, a funny meme I'd seen online. It felt so normal, so much like our old midnight conversations that I could almost forget he was dead. Almost. When he finally said goodnight, I fell asleep easier than I had in months, the slip of paper with the lottery numbers tucked safely in my wallet. The next morning, I bought the ticket on my way to work, choosing a gas station where I didn't recognize the clerk. The numbers felt strange rolling off my tongue as I read them aloud, like speaking an incantation. The clerk, a bored-looking teenager with purple hair, handed me the ticket without looking up from her phone. "Drawings tonight at 10, she mumbled. "Thanks." I folded the ticket and slipped it into my wallet next to David's numbers. All day, I felt like I was carrying around a secret bomb, something that could potentially explode my understanding of reality. Work dragged even more than the day before. I found myself checking lottery websites obsessively, reading articles about past winners and what they'd done with their money. Most of the stories were depressing. People who'd won millions only to lose it all within a few years. Families torn apart by sudden wealth. Winners who ended up worse off than before they'd bought their tickets. But there were good stories, too. People who'd used their winnings to pay for their children's education, to donate to charity, to finally pursue dreams they'd put on hold for practical reasons. Maybe if I won, I could set up a scholarship in David's name, something to help other young healthcare workers get the training they needed. I was getting ahead of myself. The chances of winning were astronomical, even with supernatural assistance. For all I knew, David's death had driven me completely around the bend, and I was having elaborate conversations with a phantom conjured by my grieving mind. The lottery drawing was broadcast live on a local channel at 10 p.m. I'd never watched one before. It seemed like the most boring television possible. But tonight I sat glued to my couch, clutching the ticket in one hand and my phone in the other. "Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Powerball drawing," the host announced with artificial enthusiasm. "Tonight's jackpot stands at $47 million. $47 million. The number was so absurd I couldn't even conceptualize it. What would I do with that kind of money? How do you even begin to spend $47 million? The ping pong balls tumbled in their clear container, and one by one, the numbers were drawn. 7. My heart skipped. 14. My hands started shaking. 23. This couldn't be happening. 31. The room started spinning. 42. I couldn't breathe. And the Powerball number is 18. I dropped the ticket, staring at the television in complete shock. All 6 numbers matched perfectly. Every single one. I'd just won $47 million because my dead brother had texted me the winning numbers from beyond the grave. I picked up the ticket with trembling fingers, checking and double-checking the numbers against what was displayed on screen. There was no mistake. I was holding a winning lottery ticket worth more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. My phone buzzed. A text from David, right on schedule. "Congratulations, millionaire. How does it feel?" I can't breathe. David, this is insane. This is actually insane. Breathe, Jess. In and out. It's going to be okay. How is any of this okay? I just won the lottery with numbers my dead brother gave me. Do you understand how crazy that sounds? About as crazy as your dead brother texting you in the first place. You handled that pretty well. He was right, but this felt different. The midnight texts were private, something I could rationalize away if I needed to. But a lottery win was public record. There would be paperwork, interviews, photos. People would ask how I'd chosen my numbers, and what was I supposed to say? That my deceased sibling had a direct line to the cosmic lottery database? What am I supposed to tell people? The truth? Just not all of it. You played numbers that were meaningful to you. David's birthday was July 14th. That's where the 7 and 14 came from. The others were just random picks. People win the lottery every week, Jess. Sometimes there's no deeper explanation than luck. But this wasn't luck, wasn't it? Maybe luck is just preparation meeting opportunity, and death gave me the preparation you needed for this opportunity. I stared at the ticket, trying to process what this meant for my life. Financial security, obviously. The ability to quit my job, travel, help my parents, donate to causes I cared about. But more than that, it was proof that David's connection to me was real and powerful in ways I was only beginning to understand. "Why?" I typed. "Why did you do this for me?" "Because you're my sister, and I love you. Because you've been struggling, and I can help. And because, well, there's more to this than just making you rich. The money is just the beginning." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" "I can see other things, Jess. Important things. Things that could help people, or save lives, or prevent disasters. But I need someone in the living world to act on that information. Someone who has the resources to make things happen, and who people will listen to. You want me to be your messenger. I want you to be my partner, like we always were, just from different sides of existence." I set the phone down and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the city lights below. $47 million. Enough money to do whatever I wanted, go wherever I pleased, help whomever I chose. But apparently, it came with strings attached. Supernatural strings that tied me to a dead man's agenda. What if I don't want that responsibility? Then don't take it. Take the money and live your life. I won't be angry and I won't stop talking to you. But Jesse, think about what we could accomplish together. Think about the good we could do. I thought about David in life, always thinking of others before himself, working night shifts at the hospital to help save lives, volunteering at the homeless shelter on weekends, calling to check on elderly neighbors during snowstorms. Of course, his death wouldn't change his fundamental desire to help people. If anything, it had probably amplified it. What kind of things are you seeing? Tomorrow night, I'll tell you about a fire. A warehouse fire that's going to kill 3 firefighters unless someone calls in an anonymous tip about a gas leak 2 hours before it starts. The building will be evacuated, and those 3 men will go home to their families instead of dying in an explosion. My blood ran cold. You're talking about changing the future, about preventing deaths. I'm talking about saving lives. The same thing I tried to do when I was alive, just with better intel. And if I don't make the call, then 3 families lose fathers, husbands, sons, and you'll have to live with knowing you could have prevented it. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the lottery ticket in my hand, and the much heavier weight of the choice David was offering me. Financial freedom came with a price I hadn't expected to pay, the responsibility for information that could alter the course of events, save lives, prevent tragedies. How do you even know this information is reliable? What if you're wrong? Then a few firefighters get called to check out a gas leak that doesn't exist, and they go home an hour later wondering why someone called in a false alarm. Worst case scenario, they're mildly annoyed. Best case, they live to see their children grow up. Arst? When he put it like that, it seemed like a no-brainer, but I knew it wouldn't always be that simple. The lottery numbers were one thing, a victimless crime, if it was even a crime at all. But acting on future knowledge to change events? That was playing God with people's lives, even if it was for their benefit. I need time to think about this, David. Of course you do. This is a lot to process. But Jess? Yeah? Don't think too long. Tomorrow night, those firefighters go to work expecting it to be just another shift. They should have the chance to make it home. The conversation ended there, leaving me alone with $47 million in lottery winnings and the knowledge that my dead brother could see disasters before they happened. I should have been celebrating my incredible good fortune. Instead, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, trying to decide whether to jump into an abyss that might contain either salvation or damnation. I poured myself a glass of wine, good wine, not the cheap stuff I usually drank, and sat back down on my couch. Tomorrow I would have to figure out how to claim my winnings without attracting too much attention. But tonight, I had a choice to make that was worth far more than any lottery jackpot. Could I live with myself if I didn't make that phone call? And if I did make it, what else would David ask of me? How many midnight revelations about future disasters would I be expected to act upon? I stared at my phone, waiting for another message that didn't come. David had said his piece and left me to wrestle with the implications on my own. Just like when we were kids and he'd present me with some moral dilemma disguised as a hypothetical question, then watch me work through the ethical implications myself. Some things, apparently, didn't change after death. My brother was still teaching me lessons about right and wrong, still pushing me to be a better person than I thought I was capable of being. The only difference now was that the stakes were measured in human lives instead of childhood regrets. I looked at the lottery ticket one more time, then carefully folded it and placed it in my jewelry box for safekeeping. $47 million. Enough money to change everything, or enough money to make me complicit in whatever larger plan David had in mind. Either way, my old life was over. The question now was what kind of new life I wanted to build from the ashes of the old one. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, staring at my phone and wrestling with David's words about the warehouse fire. 3 firefighters would die unless I made a phone call. 3 families would be destroyed unless I acted on information from my dead brother. By morning, I'd made my decision. At exactly 6:47 a.m., I called the fire department's non-emergency line from a payphone outside a convenience store, using a voice I disguised by speaking through a tissue. "There's a gas leak at the Morrison Industrial Warehouse on 5th Street, I said quickly. "It's going to blow if someone doesn't check it out soon. Ma'am, can you give me your name and—" I hung up. 2 hours later, I watched the news report from my office, my heart pounding as the reporter stood outside the warehouse. Fire officials say they received an anonymous tip about a gas leak this morning. Upon investigation, they discovered a significant propane leak that could have resulted in a catastrophic explosion. The building has been evacuated while repairs are made. No explosion, no dead firefighters, no grieving families. David had been right. That evening, I called the lottery office to begin the process of claiming my winnings. The bureaucracy was mind-numbing. Forms to fill out, appointments to schedule, decisions about lump sum versus annuity payments. I chose the lump sum, $28 million after taxes. Still more money than I could comprehend. "Congratulations, Miss Chen," the lottery official said, shaking my hand. "You're going to have a very different life now." He had no idea how different. At midnight, David was waiting. "You saved them. The gas leak was real?" "Very real. Without that call, the explosion would have happened at 9:23 p.m. during a routine inspection. Captain Rodriguez, Michael Santos, and James Park would have been killed instantly. Instead, they went home to their families tonight. I felt a strange mixture of elation and terror. How many more, David? How many more disasters can you see? That's what I need to talk to you about, Jesse. This ability isn't permanent. The connection between worlds is fragile, and it's getting weaker every time I use it. I estimate I have maybe 2 weeks before I can't reach through anymore. My heart sank. 2 weeks? That's all? Maybe less. Death isn't meant to work this way. I'm bending rules that weren't designed to be bent, and it's taking everything I have to maintain this link. Then why waste it on lottery numbers? If you can only help for a little while longer, shouldn't we focus on saving lives? The money wasn't for fun, Jess. It was for what comes next. Tomorrow night, I'm going to give you information about something much bigger than a warehouse fire. Something that will require resources to stop. What kind of something? A train derailment. Next Friday, the 8:15 commuter train from Portland to Seattle will derail just outside of Olympia. Mechanical failure in the third car will cause the entire train to leave the tracks at 70 miles per hour. 43 people will die, and over 200 will be injured. The magnitude of it hit me like a physical blow. 43 people? Families, Jess. Children. People with their whole lives ahead of them. But it's preventable if the right person makes the right call to the right officials with enough advance warning. Can't I just call in another anonymous tip? Not for something this big. They'll need specific technical details about the mechanical failure, exact timing, and enough credibility to shut down an entire rail line during rush hour. Anonymous tips don't carry that kind of weight. I understood what he was getting at. You want me to use the lottery money to hire experts, to make myself credible. I want you to become the kind of person officials listen to when she says a disaster is coming. Someone with resources, influence, connections. The lottery win is your entry ticket into a world where you can actually make a difference. Over the next few days, I threw myself into a crash course in disaster prevention. I hired a consulting firm specializing in transportation safety, retained a lawyer who specialized in emergency management, and reached out to former government officials who now worked in the private sector. I spun a story about wanting to invest in railway safety technology, using my newfound wealth to buy meetings with people who would normally never take my calls. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was using supernatural lottery winnings to gain access to the very rational, scientific world I needed to prevent a disaster only I knew was coming. Every night at midnight, David provided more details. The exact car where the failure would occur, the specific bearing that would overheat and seize, the precise location where the train would leave the tracks. He also told me about the victims, a 6-year-old girl traveling with her grandmother, a young couple on their way to their wedding, a man rushing to the hospital to see his newborn daughter. By Thursday night, I had everything in place. My transportation safety consultant had prepared a detailed report about potential bearing failures in trains of that specific model. My lawyer had drafted official-looking documents about a credible threat to public safety. My hired experts would make calls first thing Friday morning to both the railway company and federal transportation authorities. You did it, David said at midnight on Thursday. Everything you've set up will work. The train will be delayed for safety inspections, the bearing failure will be discovered and repaired, and 43 people will live to see Saturday. What about after this? What other disasters can you see? There was a long pause before he responded. This is the last one, Jesse. What do you mean? I mean I'm running out of time. This connection has cost me more than I expected. Each time I reach through to your world, I lose a little more of myself. After tomorrow, I won't be able to maintain the link anymore. Panic flooded through me. No, David, we just figured this out. We're saving lives. We can't stop now. We don't have a choice. The energy it takes to cross between worlds is literally tearing me apart. If I try to maintain this connection much longer, I won't just lose the ability to contact you. I'll lose myself entirely. What does that mean? It means the part of me that's still David will be gone forever. I'll exist, but not as your brother. Not as anyone you'd recognize. I stared at my phone through tears, understanding the impossible choice he was making. Continue talking to me and lose himself, or let go and preserve whatever existence awaited him on the other side. Is there another way? No, Jesse, this is it. Tomorrow night will be our last conversation. Friday passed in a blur of phone calls and confirmations. The train was delayed exactly as planned. The bearing failure was discovered during the safety inspection, just as David had predicted. 43 lives were saved by a handful of anonymous experts citing technical concerns about railway safety. I watched the news report that evening with a mixture of triumph and heartbreak. Transportation officials say a routine safety check revealed a critical mechanical failure that could have resulted in a catastrophic derailment. The part in question has been replaced, and normal service will resume tomorrow. No mention of the 43 people who would have died. No acknowledgement of the families who would sleep safely in their beds tonight instead of planning funerals. The world would never know how close it had come to tragedy, or that it had been saved by information from beyond the grave. At midnight, I waited for David's final message. "You did it, night shift sister. You saved them all. We did it. Together. I'm proud of you, Jess. I know this wasn't easy, and I know it's going to be even harder when I'm gone. I don't want you to go. I don't want to go either. But this isn't about what we want. It's about what's right. I've been holding on to something that was never meant to last, and it's time to let go. What am I supposed to do without you? Live, Jessie. Really live. Use that money to do good things. Travel to Ireland for both of us. Take care of Mom and Dad. Find someone who makes you laugh the way I used to. Be happy. How can I be happy when you're gone? Because happiness isn't betraying my memory. It's honoring it. I didn't reach across death to make you miserable. I did it to remind you that love doesn't end just because life does. I'll always be your brother, even if I can't text you anymore. Will I ever see you again? I don't know what comes after this, Jess, but I believe that if love is strong enough to bend the rules of death, it's strong enough to last forever. Maybe we'll find each other again someday, in whatever comes next. I love you, David. I love you too, more than you'll ever know. Now go live the life I can't, and make it count. The connection ended, and this time, I knew it was permanent. No more midnight messages. No more impossible conversations with my dead brother. Just silence and the memory of his voice telling me to live. I sat in my apartment until dawn, grieving all over again. But this time, the grief felt different. Clean. Final. Like closing a book instead of having it ripped from my hands. David was gone. Truly gone now. But he'd left me with more than supernatural lottery winnings. He'd given me purpose, showed me that even death couldn't break the bond between us, and proved that love really could transcend any boundary. I picked up my phone and called my mother. "Mom? It's Jessica. I've been thinking about that trip to go through David's things. Maybe this weekend?" "Of course, sweetheart. Your father and I would love to have you. And Mom? I'm thinking about taking a vacation soon. Maybe to Ireland. David always wanted to go there." "That sounds wonderful, honey. I think he would have loved that." She was right. He would have loved it. And somehow I knew he'd be with me when I went, not as a midnight message or supernatural intervention, but as the love and memories that no amount of death could ever take away. The sun was rising outside my window, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. For the first time in months, it looked like the beginning of something beautiful instead of just another day to survive. I had 43 lives saved, $28 million, and a whole world of possibilities ahead of me. But most importantly, I had the knowledge that my brother's love had been strong enough to reach across death itself, and that nothing, not time, not distance, not even the grave, could ever change that. It was enough. It would always be enough.